rather than a reading from the Dhammapada this morning on aging, which I and a number of other clergy here have used. And very good reading. I'm going to do a poem by Maya Angelou, also called On Aging. She says, when you see me sitting quietly, like a sack left on the shelf, don't think that I need your chattering. I'm listening to myself. Hold, stop, don't pity me. Hold, stop your sympathy. Understanding if you got it. Otherwise, I'll do without it. When my bones are stiff and aching and my feet won't climb the stair, I'll ask only one favor. Don't bring me no rocking chair. When you see me walking, stumbling, don't study and get it wrong, 'cause tired don't mean lazy, and every goodbye ain't yet gone. I'm the same person I was back then, a little less hair, a little less chin, a lot less lungs and much less wind. But ain't I lucky I can still breathe in? I have a friend of mine who lives in the Upper Peninsula outside of Marquette. He lives off grid. He and I started out in kindergarten together and went all through school together. And he always likes to say to me, Gare, he says, just consider us lucky that we're still sucking wind. So that's his favorite expression of his, still sucking wind. Because what happens when the suck is gone? When there's no more inspiration after the last expiration? No, then it's time for burying or for burning. And I think about things a whole lot more because I'm the oldest one here. And most of my life I see in the rearview mirror. It's behind me. It's gone. And I used to think when I was so much younger, how is it that these old people, they're always talking about the things that used to happen in their lives. They're living in their memories. How sad. And I'm there. I'm living in my memories because I still get a kick out of a lot of them. And there's just not a whole lot in front of me. I have no great aspirations. I have no more romantic inclinations that I'm looking for or to satisfy. I've got my children. I've had my marriages. I've had my romances. I've had my education. I did what I wanted to do. I studied medicine and ministry. I bought a house. I bought a lot of cars. I aspired to a lot of things. And as far as I'm concerned, I did them all. And so I don't have anything to look forward to other than my demise. What kind of brought this up, I was driving to CVS down 4th Street the other day. And it was a nice evening, warm, and all the young people were out. There were couples out walking their dogs, and there were a lot of young women who were out jogging, and a lot of guys were riding their bicycles. One guy was on a skateboard. And I thought, that used to be me. That used to be me. I used to be limber like that. I used to walk all around Royal Oak, all around town. I used to ride my bike up to Manresa, up to Woodward and 16. Used to rollerblade around here. Every Wednesday and oftentimes on a weekend, I'd go out to Kensington Metro Park. And I always did the 8.5-mile path. I'd walk it, or I'd bike it, or I'd rollerblade it. I was out there all the time. And now I can barely walk around the block. And it's tough sometimes to accept the fact that the end is near. I hope I've got some time, but the end is a whole lot closer than it ever was before. And every day it's that much closer. I want to read you something. This is from Daily Buddhist Devotions. It's a Theravada Buddhist handbook, and I used to use it all the time. In fact, I still sometimes use it. And I want to read you this. This is called the Meditation on Death. And it follows on the previous 2 or 3 pages, the meditation on metta, on loving kindness. Listen if you would. Seeing with wisdom the end of life in others, and comparing this to a lamp kept in a windy place. Just get that picture. A lamp in a windy place and how hard it is to keep it going. So one should meditate on death. Just as in this world, beings who once enjoyed great prosperity will die, even so one day will I die too. Death will indeed come to me. This death has come along with birth. Therefore, like an executioner, death always seeks an opportunity to destroy. Life, without halting for a moment, and ever keen and moving, runs like the sun that hastens to set after its rise. This life comes to an end like a streak of lightning, a bubble of water, a dewdrop on a leaf, or a line drawn on water. Like an enemy intent on killing, death can never be avoided. If death could come in an instant to the Buddhas endowed with great glory, prowess, merits, supernormal powers and wisdom, then what could be said of me? Dying every instant, I shall die within the twinkling of an eye, for want of food, through internal ailments, or through external injuries. And when I saw all those young people the other day, I thought of an incident when I was rollerblading out at Kensington. And it happened to be a really crowded day. And if any of you are familiar, I don't know if any of you are quite old enough to remember this, but Kensington used to have a really big hill that went right down into where the boat rental was. And that's now been all taken down, graded down, and the path goes out to the lake and comes back around and bypasses that hill. And that hill was a dangerous hill, and it was a great hill if you're into adrenaline rushes. And that was my hill for rollerblading and my adrenaline rush. Now, on a day when there was nobody there, it was great. I mean, you work up a speed like you can't believe, and then you've got to take a pretty staunch curve at the bottom. Well, this particular day, I come to the top of the hill. I just let myself go over, and man, there are people everywhere down there. Now, I know how to rollerblade, but I'm not real good at stopping, especially if I'm up to speed. And I'm like, oh man, what do I do? What do I do? And I really didn't want to do this because I know I was going to be hurting. But going down the hill, there's a little stretch of maybe 3 foot of grass, and then there's this gravel sand road over there. And knowing that I'm going to run into somebody and hurt them and probably myself, I thought just better me alone without hurting anybody else. And I just went full speed right on the grass and into the sand. My blades caught and I face planted. I body planted in the gravel. Did I get scraped up? Oh yeah, I got scraped up big time. And was there a moment of embarrassment? There was, because there were people everywhere. But nobody laughed at me, and I knew that I'd probably saved somebody's life. I didn't run into them. And I can laugh about it then, but I want to tell you something. That was in the summertime. That spring, on that very same hill, a 32-year-old young man who was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, so he has an idea about balance and center of gravity and everything. He was going down that same hill, and he fell and hit his head and bled to death that night. He had a cerebral hemorrhage, 32 years old. Like a line drawn in the water by our hand. We don't know when our time is coming. We think we have forever, but we just never know. And in fact, the next year, Kensington instituted mandatory helmets for everything, bikes and rollerblades and skateboards. And then a number of years later, they actually took that hill out because there were just too many injuries there. There's also a young girl that I think it was, I don't know, it was that same year or the next year, but somebody ran into her going down there and she got hurt pretty badly too, but 8 or 9-year-old girl, but she survived. We just never know when our time is coming. So Buddhaghosa, Venerable Buddhaghosa, who was a 5th century Theravada Indian monk, scholar, commentator, philosopher, uh, says of all the 40 different subjects for meditation the Theravada Buddhists generally use, there are only 2 that are really, really important. One of them is metta meditation, or meditation on loving kindness, and the other one is Maranga meditation, meditation on death. He said those are the only 2 that really develop your character. Those really determine what your life is going to become. Can you develop loving kindness for everybody so that you treat them well? You treat everyone with respect. You treat everyone as if they were yourself. And can you let go of greed and holding on to possessions and holding on to relationships and holding on to money and holding on to craving and realize that you are going to die and the only thing you take with you is your character? Nothing else. That's it. You take your character with you and you carry that in part to your next go around. So, one of the ways that I used to meditate on death, when I was in Christian seminary, as Presbyterian seminarian, you have to take a year of Greek and a year of Hebrew. So when I was taking my year of Hebrew, I used to go up to Oakview Cemetery. Oakview Cemetery, which is right uptown, Royal Oak, has a couple different Jewish sections in there. And all the headstones are written in Hebrew. And so I used to go up there years ago, and I'd sit there, I'd take along paper and pen, and I'd translate. Okay, what does that say? I wouldn't always know the interpretation of all those words, but I'd practice. I'd practice writing my Hebrew, and I'd practice interpreting. What is that word there? And I'd meditate on death. And I used to go there after I took those courses, and I used to just sit out there, different parts of the cemetery there, and I'd take a little cushion along here, and I'd just sit out there and just meditate. This will be me. I will be here one day. Maybe not in that particular field, but in some field, or laying in some water, laying in some ground. What was me will be scattered somewhere. And I want to tell you, this place where I've come to in my life, where I just don't have these great grand cravings anymore, I'm really thankful for it. I'm really thankful for these blessings. When I was younger, I thought, oh my God, to want this and get it. I mean, that's the highlight of life. To want that and get it. Oh man, that's the highlight of my life. And I realized that wanting is just a waste of time. And it's a really nice arena that I feel myself in right now. Because all I want is that my character be sufficiently ready to accept death whenever it comes. And I find myself, even more than I used to before, willing to cry. I cry when I feel someone else's pain, be that in a movie I'm watching, be that at my veterinary clinic, when I see the pain of the people on their faces, when I see the pain that animals are in, I shed tears very easily. And I'm happy for that. I'm happy to be able to feel compassion, karuna. It's a blessing to be able to share someone else's pain, to help them carry it. And I cry very easily at things that bring happiness, to see other people get things. I don't want these things anymore, but to have sympathetic joy, one of the heavenly abodes, to have mudita. What a blessing. One thing in Buddhism, we talk about blessings, and blessings in Buddhism aren't given from a divine being up above or out there or whatever. Blessings are engendered from within. Blessings are a result of the character that you develop, the life that you live, the righteousness that you develop, how you treat other people. And if you do that in a way that brings loving kindness and compassion and whatnot, blessings arise. So I can and do cry over other people's happiness and over other people's pain. And that's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that I can do that at this stage of my life. One of my favorite writers, because he has a way of expressing matters of the heart so well, is Khalil Gibran. This is the book, A Treasury of Khalil Gibran. Khalil Gibran was a Lebanese poet, writer, alcoholic, died at the age of 43 of cirrhosis of the liver. And I can identify with him very easily. And one of the things that he writes, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's the last poem in this book, and it's called Joy and Sorrow. Listen to what he says. I would not exchange the laughter of my heart for the fortunes of the multitudes, nor would I be content with converting my tears, invited by my agonized self, into calm. It is my fervent hope that my whole life on this earth will ever be tears and laughter. Tears that purify my heart and reveal to me the secret of life and its misery. Laughter that brings me closer to my fellow men. Tears with which I join the brokenhearted. Laughter that symbolizes my joy over our very existence. I prefer death through happiness 1,000-fold to life in vain and in despair. End of reading. Thank you.